Welcome back to The Race. I'm Chris Stewart, and this week we're in Massachusetts talking education. Right now we're outside of Boston Latin School. This first opened in 1635, making it the oldest public high school in America. A lot has changed since then. The U.S. spent $42 billion on elementary, secondary, and vocational education last fiscal year, which may seem like a lot, but local and state governments need to do more to be able to confuse the gap. Also, when we talk about school funding, it is a complicated system. People find it confusing, outdated, and unfair. But our animator Nick Rafferzo breaking it down to be much easier to understand.
Where do schools get their money? The answer is different for public, private, and home schools. Public school funding is the most complicated. They rely on federal, state, and local money. Each school district has its own funding formulas, known as foundation budgets. It analyzes a lot of information to figure out its cost per student. Let's imagine a district where the formula decides it costs $10,000 per student to run a school. The federal government will give them about 8%. Local sources, like property taxes, cover about half of the remaining $9,200. Then the state fills in the rest. But the depressing reality is, there are still huge gaps between rich and poor districts within states. The state helps poor and rich districts fill in funding gaps, but can give richer districts a surplus while the poorer district may still be struggling. Many see the state formulas as outdated. That can lead to accidental segregation, less diversity, and inequality. If a school is overcrowded, costs go up. And if a school loses students, they lose funding, but costs remain the same. Private school funding is much more simple. The money comes from tuition, fundraisers, and endowments. Some programs let parents use public money to send their kids to private school. But because money comes from more specific sources, there can be bias: economic, racial, religious, and political. Homeschooling is almost all self-funded, although parents can apply for grants. Whatever the type of school, funding will sadly depend on geography and things beyond our control. But it doesn't have to be. By participating in local government, you can help shape where and how these formulas work, what grants there are, and how money is distributed.
Our discussion on education continues next with a look at teacher pay, school funding, and whether the system is working. You're watching The Race.